My mother-in-law smiled as she held out her hand and said, "Congratulations. The family voted, and we've decided your car belongs to my daughter now." I thought she was joking. Then my sister-in-law tossed me a spare key she'd had secretly made, slid into the driver's seat of my $70,000 car, and started the engine while my husband stood there saying absolutely nothing. My name is Claire. I'm 35 years old, and until that afternoon, I honestly believed the worst thing my husband's family could do was make passive-aggressive comments over Sunday dinner. I was very, very wrong. People often assume that controlling families start out cruel. Most don't. They begin with tiny favors. Could you bring dessert? Can you help cover dinner? You're so much better with money than we are. Every request seems harmless. Every sacrifice feels temporary. Then one day you wake up and realize you've slowly become the family's unpaid bank account. When I married Daniel 6 years earlier, he warned me that his mother, Patricia, was a little overprotective. That description should have come with a warning label. Patricia believed every member of the family existed to support her youngest daughter, Vanessa. Vanessa was 32 years old. She had changed jobs 11 times in 8 years. Every failure was someone else's fault. Every unpaid bill became a family emergency. Every poor decision somehow turned into everyone else's responsibility. If Vanessa wanted a vacation, Patricia insisted she deserved a break. If Vanessa wrecked another car, Patricia said life was simply unfair to her. Meanwhile, Daniel and I worked incredibly hard. I owned a successful interior design business that I'd built from scratch. There were months in the beginning when I survived on instant noodles because every extra dollar went back into the business. Nobody handed me success. I earned every inch of it. Daniel worked as an engineer. Together, we were financially comfortable because we'd spent years saying no to things we couldn't afford. We drove sensible cars. Saved aggressively. Invested carefully. Until 3 years ago. My company landed the biggest commercial contract of my career. After taxes and expenses, I rewarded myself with something I'd dreamed about since I was 22. A beautiful luxury SUV worth just over $70,000. It wasn't bought with family money. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't financed by anyone else. I paid every penny myself. When Daniel handed me the keys at the dealership, I cried. I can't believe this is real. He laughed. You earned it. For a while, everything was perfect. Then Vanessa saw the car. Oh my God, she said, walking around it slowly. This is gorgeous. Patricia smiled at me. Must be nice having extra money. I answered politely. I worked really hard for it. She gave me a strange look. We all work hard. Something about the way she said it made me uncomfortable. After that day, Vanessa constantly borrowed the SUV. Just for one afternoon. I have an interview. I have a date. My car's making a weird noise. The first few times, I agreed. Then I started noticing things. The gas tank always came back empty. Fast food wrappers covered the floor. One afternoon, I found a long scrape along the rear bumper. Vanessa shrugged. It was already there. It absolutely wasn't. When I asked her to pay for repairs, Patricia immediately became involved. Families don't nickel and dime each other. I quietly paid the repair bill myself. Then I stopped lending her the car. Vanessa complained constantly. Patricia called me selfish. Daniel always tried staying neutral. I understand both sides. I hated hearing those words. There weren't two sides. One person wanted something she didn't own. The other person simply said no. Months passed. The tension grew worse. Every family gathering somehow returned to my SUV. You barely drive it. It's too expensive for someone like you. Vanessa would appreciate it more. At first, I laughed. Surely nobody seriously believed I should hand over a vehicle I'd worked years to afford. Then Patricia started saying something that unsettled me. In a family, we share blessings. Each time she said it, she'd look directly at my car parked outside. Daniel always changed the subject. One Friday evening, Patricia invited everyone to her house for what she called an important family discussion. I assumed someone was sick. Maybe retirement plans. Maybe selling the family home. I couldn't have imagined the truth. Dinner felt strangely formal. Everyone kept exchanging nervous glances. Vanessa could barely hide her excitement. Finally, Patricia stood. She tapped her wine glass. I have wonderful news. Nobody spoke. She smiled at Vanessa. Our family has reached a decision. I frowned. What decision? She looked directly at me. We all voted. My stomach tightened. And we've decided your SUV should go to Vanessa. For a second, I genuinely thought she was joking. Then Patricia continued speaking. You already have a successful business. Vanessa needs reliable transportation. It only makes sense. The room stayed completely serious. I looked at Daniel. He stared down at his plate. My heart started pounding. What exactly are you saying? Patricia smiled as though explaining something obvious. The family agreed. Starting today, the SUV belongs to Vanessa. Before I could even respond, Vanessa reached into her purse. She tossed something across the table. It landed in front of me with a metallic clink. A car key. Not mine. A duplicate. My blood ran cold. She smiled proudly. I had one made last month. Then she stood, walked toward the front door, and everyone calmly watched her head outside. I heard my SUV unlock. Then the engine started. I turned toward Daniel in complete disbelief. You knew? He didn't answer immediately. That silence hurt more than anything. Finally, he whispered. I thought maybe if we talked about it. I felt something inside me break. I stood so quickly my chair crashed onto the floor. My husband. I looked around the table. My own husband allowed someone to make a key to my car. Without telling me? No one answered. Outside, I heard the engine rev again. Patricia smiled calmly. Don't be dramatic. It's just a vehicle. I looked directly into her eyes. No. It's not. It's 6 years of 80-hour work weeks. It's birthdays I missed. It's vacations I never took. It's every sacrifice you never saw. Vanessa honked the horn outside. Patricia actually laughed. See? She looks happy already. At that exact moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight over the keys. And I definitely wasn't going to let them know they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I simply smiled. Then I quietly said, if that's what the family voted, I guess we'll find out who actually owns the car. I picked up my purse, walked calmly toward the front door, and let Vanessa drive away. Because there was one very important fact sitting quietly inside my handbag. A fact nobody at that dinner table knew. Not even my husband. And once they discovered it, their little family vote was about to become the most expensive decision any of them had ever made. Vanessa smiled and waved as she drove my SUV out of Patricia's driveway like she'd just won the lottery. Several relatives actually clapped. I stood there in complete silence, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. Patricia folded her arms proudly. There. See how easy that was? I slowly turned toward her. You really think this is over? She smiled. I think you've finally learned that marriage means sharing. I almost laughed. Sharing? They had just taken property worth $70,000 without my permission and somehow convinced themselves it was an act of family love. I looked at Daniel. I need to ask you one question. He swallowed hard. Okay. When did you know? He closed his eyes for a second. About 2 weeks ago. Those 5 words hit me harder than the stolen car. You let this happen? I thought Mom was only talking. Then why didn't you tell me? I didn't think she'd actually do it. I stared at him. But she had a key made. He couldn't answer. That silence told me everything. Patricia interrupted. Daniel was trying to keep the peace. I looked at her. No. He was keeping you comfortable. Without another word, I walked to my own car. Except, I no longer had one. So I called a rideshare and left. Nobody tried stopping me. On the ride home, I didn't cry. I was too angry. When I walked into the house, I went straight to my office, opened a locked drawer, and pulled out a thick blue folder. Every document related to that SUV was inside. Purchase agreement. Insurance. Registration. GPS subscription. Maintenance records. Business use documentation. Then I smiled for the first time that evening. Because there was something else inside. A document I had signed nearly 3 years earlier after advice from my accountant. Since I regularly used the SUV to transport clients and expensive design samples, my business, not me personally, owned the vehicle. The title wasn't in my name. It belonged to my company. Nobody in Daniel's family knew that. Not even Daniel. Back then, he had simply said, "Whatever your accountant recommends." He never asked another question. I immediately called my attorney, Rebecca. She answered on the second ring. Claire? You sound shaken. I took a deep breath. My in-laws just gave my company vehicle to my sister-in-law. Silence. Then, they did what? I explained everything. Every detail. Rebecca didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she quietly said, "Don't call them. Don't text them. And whatever you do, don't warn them." What should I do? She smiled. Let them dig the hole a little deeper. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Patricia. You'll calm down. Vanessa. The SUV drives like a dream. Daniel. Can we please talk? I ignored all of them. Around noon, another message arrived. It was a picture. Vanessa standing beside my SUV outside an expensive boutique. Caption. Finally driving the car I deserve. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Congratulations. So happy for you. She wasn't hiding anything. She genuinely believed the car was hers. Rebecca called that afternoon. I've reviewed everything. And? She sounded almost amused. Claire. This is much worse than simple family drama. What do you mean? The vehicle belongs to your corporation. Which means? She paused. Your sister-in-law publicly admitted possessing corporate property without authorization. I blinked. That's bad? It's incredibly bad. She explained that because the SUV was insured under the business, anyone driving it without permission wasn't covered. If Vanessa caused an accident, the financial consequences could be devastating. I felt sick. I don't want anyone hurt. I know. Rebecca replied. But that's why she needs to return it immediately. Before I could answer, another call came through. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Is this Claire Morgan? Yes. This is Officer Hernandez. My heart stopped. Your vehicle has been reported in a parking dispute. What happened? Nothing serious. We just need to verify ownership. I immediately drove to the shopping center. Rebecca met me there. When we arrived, Vanessa was arguing with security. There she is. She pointed at me. Tell them it's my car. The officer looked between us. Ma'am, can you provide proof of ownership? Vanessa confidently reached into the glove compartment. Then froze. There was no registration. Because I always kept it in a locked document holder inside my office for business purposes. She smiled awkwardly. My sister-in-law has it. The officer turned to me. I calmly handed him the corporate registration papers. He studied them. Then looked at Vanessa. These documents indicate the vehicle belongs to Morgan Interior Design Incorporated. Vanessa laughed. That's Claire's company. Exactly. He looked back at her. Do you have written authorization from the corporation to operate this vehicle? Silence. Patricia suddenly arrived. She had apparently rushed over after Vanessa called. This is ridiculous. We're family. The officer remained calm. Family relationships don't determine vehicle ownership. Patricia looked at me. Claire. Tell him. I folded my arms. Tell him what? That she has permission. I looked directly into her eyes. I never gave permission. Her face changed instantly. For the first time. She looked afraid. The officer politely asked Vanessa to step away from the SUV. She refused. I have a key. Rebecca quietly spoke. Having a key doesn't establish ownership. Then came the first major twist. The officer asked a simple question. How did you obtain the duplicate key? Vanessa proudly answered before thinking. I had one made. Using what authorization? Silence. She looked toward Patricia. Patricia looked toward Daniel. Daniel looked at the ground. The officer slowly wrote something into his notebook. Rebecca leaned toward me and whispered. She just admitted making an unauthorized duplicate. Things were getting worse for them by the minute. The SUV was temporarily secured while ownership was verified. Vanessa burst into tears. This is humiliating. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Humiliating? She had driven away in property that wasn't hers. Posted photos online. Bragged about it. And now she felt embarrassed? Patricia suddenly grabbed my arm. Enough. You've made your point. I gently pulled away. No. You made the point. I just brought paperwork. Daniel finally spoke. Claire. Can we go somewhere private? I looked at him. For what? So we can fix this. I shook my head. You had 2 weeks to fix it. You chose silence. He looked completely broken. I was scared. So was I. I answered quietly. The difference is, I didn't betray you. That night, I went home emotionally exhausted. I thought the worst was over. I couldn't have been more wrong. At 8 the next morning, Rebecca called again. Claire. You need to sit down. My stomach tightened. What happened? Your SUV wasn't just driven. It was used. Used how? She took a deep breath. Vanessa signed up for a luxury rideshare service. I frowned. What? She uploaded photos, registered herself as the owner, and completed paid trips. I couldn't believe it. She hadn't just stolen the vehicle. She had started making money with corporate property she didn't own. Rebecca's voice became serious. This changes everything. Outside my office window, I watched the rain begin to fall. For the first time since this nightmare started, I realized this had never really been about my SUV. It was about entitlement. It was about a family who believed they could vote away years of my hard work simply because they wanted to. But they had no idea what Rebecca had just discovered. Because hidden inside those rideshare records was one piece of evidence that was about to destroy every excuse Patricia, Vanessa, and even my husband had been desperately trying to hold on to. I spent that entire night staring at my phone, replaying one question over and over in my head. How many times had I mistaken manipulation for love? Rebecca arrived at my office the next morning carrying a thick folder. She placed it on my desk. I finally have everything. I looked at her. Tell me. She opened the folder. Vanessa didn't just use your SUV for a few rides. She slid several printed pages toward me. She completed 23 paid trips. My jaw dropped. What? She advertised the vehicle as her own, accepted payments, and electronically agreed that she was the legal owner. I slowly leaned back in my chair. Every lie she had told was now documented. Timestamped. Signed. Rebecca smiled. She didn't realize every click created evidence. Then she showed me something that made my stomach turn. One customer had reported damage after Vanessa slammed expensive luggage into the rear cargo area. Another had complained that the vehicle smelled strongly of alcohol. Then came the biggest shock. Vanessa had been cited for speeding while transporting passengers. The ticket had automatically been mailed to my business. Had I ignored it, my company could have faced insurance complications. I closed my eyes. They could have destroyed everything I'd built. Rebecca nodded. They almost did. For the first time since all this started, I cried. Not because of the SUV. Because I finally understood something painful. Patricia and Vanessa had never respected my success. To them, anything I owned was simply another family resource waiting to be claimed. Rebecca gently pushed a tissue box toward me. So, what do you want to do? I took a long breath. I want justice. Not revenge. She smiled. Good. Justice lasts longer. That afternoon she officially demanded the immediate return of the SUV, reimbursement for damages, reimbursement for unauthorized commercial use, replacement of every duplicated key, legal costs, and written confirmation that neither Patricia nor Vanessa would ever claim ownership again. The deadline was 24 hours. Patricia called within 15 minutes. I answered. Her voice sounded completely different. Soft. Almost sweet. Claire. Surely we can settle this privately. We tried that. You never listened. She sighed dramatically. Families forgive. I answered quietly. Families don't vote to steal. She became angry again. You've turned one misunderstanding into a legal circus. No. You turned theft into a family meeting. Then I hung up. Daniel came over that evening. He looked exhausted. His eyes were red. I deserve everything you're feeling. I stayed silent. I should have stopped them. Yes. I should have warned you. Yes. I kept hoping Mom would back down. I looked directly at him. You always hoped someone else would solve problems you were responsible for. He lowered his head. I know. For several minutes neither of us spoke. Finally he reached into his pocket. He placed something on my coffee table. The duplicate key. I found it in Vanessa's purse this morning. I stared at it. I told her to give it back. Did she? No. So I took it. It was the first time he'd ever stood up to his family. Unfortunately, it came far too late. The next morning Rebecca called again. They rejected every demand. I wasn't surprised. What now? She smiled. Now comes discovery. Within days, depositions were scheduled. Financial records were requested. Phone messages were preserved. Social media posts were archived. The internet never forgets. Especially when someone proudly posts pictures committing wrongdoing. Then came the first massive twist. Rebecca invited me to her office. You need to hear this yourself. She pressed play on an audio recording obtained during legal discovery. It was a voicemail Patricia had accidentally left for Vanessa weeks before the family meeting. Patricia laughed. Don't worry. If Claire refuses, we'll pressure Daniel. He always gives in. Vanessa laughed too. And if she still says no? Patricia answered without hesitation. Then we'll shame her in front of everyone. My heart broke. The family vote had never been real. There hadn't been discussion. There hadn't been fairness. It was all theater. The outcome had been planned before I ever entered Patricia's dining room. Rebecca quietly paused the recording. Still think this was about sharing? I slowly shook my head. No. It was about control. She nodded. Exactly. A week later everyone gathered for mediation. Patricia, Vanessa, Daniel, their attorney, Rebecca, and me. Patricia tried smiling. I'm sure reasonable people can work this out. Rebecca calmly placed a binder on the table. We agree. Inside were photographs, registration records, commercial rideshare contracts, insurance policies, traffic citations, GPS logs, screenshots of Vanessa proudly riding my new SUV. Every page made their attorney look more uncomfortable. Then Rebecca played the voicemail. Nobody spoke. Vanessa burst into tears. Patricia's confidence disappeared instantly. Their attorney slowly closed the binder. He looked at them. You told me this was a family misunderstanding. Nobody answered. He stood. I need 10 minutes alone with my clients. When everyone left the room, Rebecca smiled. They're finally understanding. 20 minutes later they returned. Everything had changed. Their attorney spoke first. My clients wished to settle. The agreement required Vanessa to pay every repair, every legal fee, every business loss, every rideshare profit, every duplicated key replacement. She also had to publish a public statement admitting the vehicle had never belonged to her. Then came the second twist. Rebecca quietly added one final document. Our last condition. Their attorney looked confused. What is this? Rebecca smiled. A permanent no-access agreement. Neither Patricia nor Vanessa would ever again possess keys, access codes, or authorization involving any of my property or business. If they violated it, the penalties would become much more severe. Patricia looked horrified. You don't trust us? I finally spoke. I used to. Silence. She began crying. Real tears this time. I never imagined we'd lose our family over a car. I looked at her calmly. We didn't. You lost our family the moment you believed my work belonged to someone else. She couldn't answer. The settlement was signed. The SUV came home 2 days later. It was professionally repaired. Detailed. Returned with a full tank of gas. Ironically, it looked almost brand new. Daniel moved into an apartment shortly afterward. We separated. Not because of the SUV. Because trust doesn't disappear all at once. It disappears one silent moment at a time. Months later he asked to meet for coffee. I'd been in therapy. I nodded. My counselor asked me one question I couldn't answer. I waited. He asked why I spent my whole life protecting everyone's feelings except my wife's. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't know. You do now. He nodded. I do. Whether our marriage survives. I honestly don't know. Healing isn't guaranteed. It's earned. As for Patricia and Vanessa, life changed quickly. Word spread through the community. Not because I embarrassed them. Because Vanessa's own social media posts contradicted every excuse they made. Friends stopped believing her stories. Several people she'd borrowed money from demanded repayment after realizing how easily she'd manipulated others. Even extended relatives quietly distanced themselves. One afternoon, nearly a year later, I parked my SUV outside my office. A young employee admired it. Beautiful car. You must really love it. I smiled. I do. Then I surprised myself by adding, but not for the reason you think. He looked confused. I gently ran my hand across the hood. This car reminds me of the day I stopped asking permission to protect what I'd earned. He smiled without fully understanding. That was okay. Some lessons only make sense after you've lived them. Sometimes people ask whether I regret taking legal action. Whether I should have simply handed over the SUV to keep the peace. My answer never changes. Peace built on surrender isn't peace. It's permission. For years I confused kindness with obligation. Love with sacrifice. Family with ownership. Now I know better. The most valuable thing I drove home that week wasn't a $70,000 SUV. It was my self-respect. And unlike the car, no family vote would ever take that away from me.